Good morning, everybody. This morning I'm going to show you how to make mapo tofu. This is also known on some restaurant menus as hot and spicy tofu. If you've ever had this, it's really good. Now, you need a few specialized ingredients here. Don't get daunted by looking at the counter. All of these in the back here are to season the broth. And if you left all of this out, it would still taste good. What you actually need are obviously the tofu. I'm using medium firm because it works out best. You must have these two ingredients here. I've got black beans and oil because I find it's just easier to deal with those than the dried ones. There's less fuss. Now, you also need what they call hot bean paste. It's either will say hot bean paste. This jar I found said soybean paste with chili paste. So you're looking basically for some kind of hot bean paste. Garlic and ginger for sure. I'm using half a pound of pork. If you want to substitute that for beef, go ahead. And I've got some oil, chicken broth, and the seasonings for the broth are Sichuan wine. You can use sherry, some dark soy. You can use light soy. I just prefer the flavor of that. Some sesame oil and some sugar. First thing to do is get the tofu prepared. Now to do that, I've got a pot of water boiling. You're going to blanch the tofu. The purpose of this is once it's blanched, it doesn't break up as much when you fry it in the pan. And I am just going to use a pan today. I could use a wok, but this dish makes just as easily in a pan. I got the pork back in the fridge for the time being, if you're wondering where that went. Now, if you've never worked with tofu before, this one is sealed, but you can see the water coming up. Some of them are clear. What I do is I just make a slit along the top and just drain out the fluid in the sink so I don't get a big mess on my cutting board. And after that's opened, yeah, most of the water is out. I'll just turn it over to the sink briefly to get whatever didn't come out the first time. Now you don't need to worry about rinsing this because you're going to be blanching it. See, even there it broke off a little bit. So what you want to do is just get it in slices like that, about that big. This does not have to be precise. And then after that, take one of the slices and I just cut that in half, and then pieces, guess what, about the size you find in the dish in the restaurant. So just put that in a bowl. Then I peel and chop the ginger. Once that's peeled, I just slice it up quickly. And then just do it up in little slivers. And then finish the chop the other way. So after you cut the ends off the garlic cloves, just peel that like that by giving them a quick smash. They should just pull right out. Skin should just pull right off like that. And then roughly chop those up. Since this is a very spicy dish, it doesn't really matter if you've got a couple of really big chunks of garlic in here. It just adds to the character of the dish. The last bit of chopping is going to be the black beans. Now I use 2 tablespoons here. Obviously with something like beans you're not going to get this absolutely precise, and this also is a matter of taste. So you can put a bit more, a bit less. Because these are in oil, you don't have to rinse them, which is nice. One less step. Now these, if you've never seen these, These are fermented black beans that are packed in oil. And yeah, you don't want to be holding these while you're chopping them, so just give them a rough chop with a cleaver. What you're doing this more for is that the inside of the bean is opened up so it can break down a bit during the stir fry. And just put that with the other stuff. I forgot to hit the button there, sorry. Once the water's come to a full boil, just add the tofu and put some cold water in the bowl that it was in. And just give it a quick stir with a slotted spoon and just wait for it to come back to a boil. Once it's boiled for a little bit there, you can transfer it back out into the cold water. So while the tofu pieces are blanching, just measure your stock into some kind of container and then add the seasonings to it. Just stir that up with a spoon. Sounds like the tofu's ready. Yeah, so that's blanched quite nicely. And what I'll do is I just get my cold water. See if I can do this without spilling everything. I didn't wake up that long ago. But I gotta shoot this before I'm gonna go to work today, if I'm gonna stay on schedule this week. So just transfer them carefully with a slotted spoon to the cold water. Like that, to cool off. And the last bit of prep before you start cooking is to get your cornstarch and water ready. This is one thing you don't want to be chasing at the last minute while the dish is cooking on the stove. So you have that ready on the side, just thicken your sauce with at the end. Cooking actually on this goes pretty quick. Most of the work's in the prep. So heat up 1/4 cup of oil over medium-high heat. You can use a wok if you want. I'm just showing that you can easily do this just in a regular pan. And I don't feel like getting my wok out. Now some people might think 1/4 cup of oil is excessive. Actually, I've read several versions of this recipe. Some of them call for twice this much. And you actually do need a fair amount of oil for it to turn out properly. And as you can see, that basically just coats nicely the bottom of a large frying pan. So next thing, get your pork out of the fridge. I always keep that in the fridge while I'm not using it. Break that up and start frying it. So fry up the pork till it looks nearly cooked. And then add the chopped ingredients. Stir those up. Go get the jar of hot bean paste. Now this is very much to taste. I use 2. Some people would like less. Some people are going to say this is way not hot enough. If you want to add stuff to it after, you can either use my garlic chili oil, which is always nice in something like this. Just some plain chili powder. For someone whose palate is not too adventurous, this is quite enough, trust me. So I'll give you a quick zoom here. Once you've stirred this up, that you can see that the chili is starting to go into the oil and it's turning reddish. And what you want to do is get your mixed stock, give it a quick stir first. Add that to the pan and just stir it up to deglaze the bottom of any bits that have been stuck on. In the meantime, drain the water off the tofu. When the dish is coming to a boil, add the drained tofu. Stir that up and let that simmer for a few minutes. You'll notice that by blanching the tofu, it does break up a little bit, but nothing close to what it would have done if it had been uncooked. So when it looks like it's pretty much cooked and the tofu is starting to take on the color of the sauce, and what you do is just briefly mix up your cornstarch and water. Put that in. And just stir that through until the sauce is thickened up. Shouldn't take that long. I'll just transfer this to a bowl for you to get a look at. Okay, so I've got that in a bowl there. Let's try to get a nice zoom for you to see. So that's how I make mapo tofu. I do hope you try it, and see you again.